Hi everyone, this is Grandmaster Molton. Welcome to my channel and my very first video. In this video we'll learn some very nice opening traps in the London system, which can catch even your strongest opponents off guard. It's a very popular opening at the moment for players of any skill level, so stay tuned and be sure to watch until the very end. If you enjoy the content, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you want to see more weekly chess videos. Okay, let's get started. I hope you guys enjoy. So the London starts out with 1d4, knight f6, white plays the move bishop f4, black plays e6, we play the move e3, black plays b6. So in the first part of this video we're going to be focusing on structures where black plays the Queen's Indian, and that's when he plays the move e6 and b6. In the second half of the video I'll look at what to do against d5. So against this we can continue knight f3, bishop b7, knight bd2. Black will normally challenge the center by playing the move c5, and here the normal option would be to play the move c3, with the idea of bringing our bishop to d3, playing h3, and then tucking away our London bishop on the h2 square, keeping it on this very strong diagonal. However, in this particular position we actually have a much trickier move, and this is the one I'm going to be recommending, and that's the move knight c4. So here we're immediately threatening to jump into the d6 square of our knight and cause some problems for black. The best response for black in my opinion is actually just to allow this and to play the move bishop e7, and after knight d6 check, bishop takes, stopping black from castling. Black should play the move knight e4, kicking the bishop away, which probably should go to the f4 square. And then white has the two bishops and a very solid pawn structure, although black doesn't have any real problems either, so this should be perfectly playable for both sides. However, in this particular position, a natural move for black, which many people have played, which is in fact slightly wrong, is the move d5, which wins the tempo in the knight and protects the d6 square, so it looks very logical. But after the move knight e5, we see black runs into quite a number of problems in this position, mainly due to the threats of bishop b5 check and the knight coming into g5. One way to stop knight g5 is to play h6, but this allows bishop b5 check. And now there's no good way for black to block the check. For example, knight bd7 runs into knight takes d7, and if knight takes d7 we can play the move knight e5, and now black can't sufficiently meet the threat of bishop takes d7. For example, bishop c8 runs into bishop c6, and now the rook on a8 is in quite a lot of trouble. Therefore, if we go back, black can try something else here, and that's the move bishop d6. Now if we play knight g5, black will simply castle, and he's well defended the f7 pawn. So instead of knight g5 here, we're once again going to play the move bishop b5 check. And black can't block the check again because of some tactics involving the d6 bishop. Therefore the best move for him to play is to go king e7. We should have a very pleasant position here because the black king is stuck in the center. Now another popular move in this position is knight bd7. But after this we can play the move bishop b5. Black can answer with the move a6. And it looks like black's just in time to kick out the bishop and relieve the pressure along this diagonal. But we played a very surprising move here as white. Instead of moving our bishop back, we can play the move knight g5, simply keeping the bishop on pre, instead going for the f7 pawn. So if black takes the bishop, we can go knight e takes f7, forking the queen and rook. So black can move the queen to e7, and then we can simply take the rook in the corner. Now we're up the exchange already, and if our knight can safely get back into the game, then we'll be clearly winning in this position. So black will do all he can to try and trap the knight, and he can do so by trying to play the move e5 to lock our bishop out on this diagonal. But here we can simply take it, And after knight takes e5, white has a very nice move in this position, and that's the move knight takes h7, freeing up some squares for our knight to hop back into the game, and also opening up some tactics along this diagonal for our queen. Now if black takes the knight, we can go queen h5 check, forking both knights, winning one of them back, and also ending up clearly material up. For example, g6, we can simply go queen takes e5, and our knight will come back into the game, and we'll have a winning position. Okay, for the second half we'll look at 1d4, d5, bishop f4, and black usually plays the move c5 here to challenge the center. We'll play e3, and the normal move is knight f6, but first we'll look at the first trap starting with queen b6. After this move we have a very nice response, and that's the move knight c3. And here we can just ignore the fact that the pawn on b2 is hanging, because if black tries to take it, then we can answer with the move knight d5, and then knight d7 check is an unstoppable threat. For example, knight a6 will run into bishop takes a6. Now if black tries to play the move pawn takes d4 here, then we can't take the pawn on d5 yet because of queen a5 check, but we can throw in a nice intermediate check ourselves with bishop e5 check. And after knight c6, now in fact we can take the pawn on d5, because if black takes the bishop, he runs into knight c7 check, and if he plays the move queen a5 check, then we have a very nice blocking tactic with b4, and next move we'll follow up with knight c7, winning some material. Another trap in this position can start after the move knight c6. We play c3, black plays queen b6, we play queen b3. Here black shouldn't take the queen, because after we take back, the double b pawns isn't really a problem, and in fact we get a lot of pressure along this a file. Therefore, a common response for black is to play the move c4. Again, we shouldn't take the queen for the same reason, so we should simply retreat it to c2. And here black might be tempted to play the move bishop f5, thinking that he has a winning position. After queen takes f5, he can simply take the pawn on b2, winning our rook in the corner. In fact, here we have a very nice response, and that's the move queen takes d5. After queen takes a1, we have the very nice move in this position, queen b5, defending our knight on b1, also attacking the pawn on b7. After black castles queenside, which is the most logical response to defend the pawn, we can simply play the move bishop takes c4. And here black has a problem, because the queen actually has no retreat squares, and we're only 3 moves away from fully trapping it. And there's actually nothing black can really do about it. The best try from white here has been the move pawn to e5, but after this we can actually just give up the bishop to further accelerate development. So we can simply play the move knight e2. If black takes the bishop, we can simply castle, and next move we'll move our knight away, say to d2, and then we'll trade off the rook for the queen. And even though it looks like black has a lot of material, specifically 2 rooks for the queen, our queen is much more active and the black pawns are quite weak. So in this position the queen is much better than 2 rooks. So going back to move 3, the best move should be knight f6 for black. And here white should follow up with c3. Black can play the move knight c6, which is the best move, but there's also another trap in this position that starts after the move queen b6. Again, we play the move queen b3. Black should play c4. We drop our queen back to c2. Now if black's mistaken his move order here, he can actually play the move bishop f5, thinking that it's a normal move in a normal position. The idea being, if queen takes f5, then he can simply take the pawn on b2, attacking our rook, which is trapped in the corner. But here, because he hasn't moved his knight on c6, he actually forced for a very beautiful checkmate on the back rank with the move queen c8. A very surprising move if black wasn't expecting this in this position. So going back to move 4, black should play knight c6 here. We play knight d2. Black usually plays e6. Knight gf3. Bishop d6 is a good move here to challenge our bishop on f4. We should drop our bishop back to g3. Black shouldn't take our bishop here on g3 because after h takes, this simply creates some pressure along the h file and also makes it unpleasant if black decides to castle to the king side. Instead, black should simply castle. We can play the move bishop d3. And now, black will usually try to push the pawn on e6 to e5, and he does so by playing the queen to e7. This way threatening the pawn push e5 next move. So the only way for us to stop it is to play the move knight e5. Now, this knight can be quite an annoying piece on e5, so black usually wants to dislodge it immediately. And the typical move for black to play is the move knight d7 to try and challenge this knight immediately. Here, I encourage you to play the move suggested because it sets up a very nice trap which black can in fact fall into quite often because it's not a very obvious trap to see. And it starts with the move knight d7. And here black will usually take with the bishop because it's the most logical capture. We have the move bishop takes d6 here. After queen takes d6, we follow up with the move d takes c5. Here the tactic's still not very obvious, so a lot of players, even strong grandmasters, have fallen into this trap, and they'll unknowingly take the pawn on c5. Here, I'll give you a few seconds to try and spot the tactic. Okay, welcome back. So the solution in this position is actually very beautiful if you haven't seen it before, and it starts with an absolute thunderbolt move, bishop takes h7 check. Now the king can take this bishop, we follow up with queen h5 check, the king has to go to g8, and then we play a very surprising quiet move, just simply attacking the queen and bring an extra piece into the attack, knight e4. Now, black can move the queen back to e7, but then the problem is white will follow up with knight g5, and then the mating threat on h7 is simply too strong to stop. So for example, if he moves the rook to e8, we can go queen h7 check, king f8, followed by queen h8 mate. He can also try to counterattack our queen by playing the move g6, but here we see the point of having the bishop on d7 because we have an extra piece to attack. So we can simply take the queen, and after they take our queen, we can take the bishop, further attacking the rook, which has to move, and then we can give another check on f6, winning another pawn on h5. Here white's simply 2 pawns up with a clearly winning position. Therefore, the best move in this position for black is to move the queen and to leave the e7 square so the king can potentially run there in the future. And one possible move might be queen c4. But after this move, we can play knight g5. And in one game in this position, they followed rook f d8. White first played the move queen takes f7, forcing the black king to go to h8. We followed up with queen h5 check again. The king goes back. And now we can give this check on h7, but it forces the king to run away towards the queen side, which is not what we want just yet. So we can actually throw in a nice quiet move in this position, simply because black has no good moves to deal with it, and that's the move rook d1. Now black is in some sort of a zugzwang because he doesn't actually have a good response. In the game they followed bishop e8, but then white played a very nice move, queen h7 check, king f8, queen h8 check, king e7, queen takes g7, forcing the king to d6, and then simply played the quiet b3, attacking the queen and asking it where is it going. Well, it has to defend this mate on e4 from the knight, therefore it can only really go to 2 squares, on g4 or h4. G4 doesn't quite work because queen G4 runs into the discovered check, knight F7 check, winning the queen on G4. Therefore, the only move in the game was queen H4. But then white plays another move, G3, and now the queen is completely out of squares because it can't go to G4 for the same reason, so it has to go to H5. And this runs into a very nice checkmate, knight E4 check. And here we see the point of the rook being on D1. But this is the final trap of the game. I hope you guys enjoyed all the traps in the London and have a lot of success playing them in your game.